If you've just tuned in, we're going to talk more to the charlatans in just a bit. That was the stereophonics, though, which I should dedicate to Mick, Dean, Beanie and Ed in Spalding and Lincolnshire. OK. And local boy in the photograph. We have the net coming up with the fallout after the Brits. Is that right, Danny?
It is, certainly. It's odd you should be playing the stereophonics. We've got them in the programme today. You know, in the run-up to the Brits, there was all this chat as to whether it was a cynical marketing ploy. You know,
Surely not.
Yes, just to sell more records. Well, we've got some of the stats through, and one thing's for sure, record company bosses must be rubbing their hands with glee today, because yesterday's charts show an amazing upturn in sales. So more of that coming up, as well as news, as I mentioned, of the stereophonics, and from LA, tales of Robert Downey Junior and Francis Ford Coppola.
Newsbeat Entertainment Transmission. This is the net.
Yes, this love if you want it. Don't sound like no sonnet.
So it's estimated that last week's Brit Awards are responsible for a huge increase in the amount of albums sold throughout the UK. Apparently 220,000 extra CDs have crossed the counter since last Monday, in turn generating close to £2.5 million. Top of the list are The Verve, who of course picked up Best Band and Album at the awards. And Urban Hymns is now sitting pretty on top of the album charts once again after an amazing week. Here's chart analyst Alan Jones from Music Week.
The sales went up from 48,000 a fortnight ago to 123,000 copies last week, which is an increase of over 150%. Now that's the increase there, which is 75,000, was about a third of the total extra sales that the Brits stimulated last week. The All Saints album sold an extra 30,000 copies. Finley Quay's Maverick A Strike sold an extra 26,000 copies, and Texas White on Blonde, that went up 22,000 sales. Fleetwood Mac, of course, won the Outstanding Contribution Award, and even though no one album by Fleetwood Mac came through and became a huge chart entry this week, they did have 4 re-entries in the top 75 and sold an extra 15,000 albums on the back of the awards.
It sounds like the ones who did well were the people who performed as opposed to the people who got awards.
That's usually the case, although Robbie Williams performed a medley with Tom Jones from the Full Monty, and just his presence on the show reminded people that Life Through a Lens is a good album. And even though he didn't perform any songs from that album, it sold an extra 22,000 copies last week.
And it would seem the Brits have done the stereophonics no harm either. They're new at number 14 in the singles chart with this track, Local Boy in the Photograph. The Welsh trio picked up the award for Best Newcomer as voted by Radio 1 listeners, arguably the most prestigious and certainly the most glamorously presented award of the night. The track was first released about a year ago when it got to number 51. This time, though, it's been remixed, something which frontman Kelly has mixed feelings about.
Why it was remixed? You were as good an idea as one I got, because they want to remix everything we ever do, and I don't know what's the matter with the ones in the first place, but it's got to be a little bit more punchy for the radio. It has to be a little bit more punchy. Let me tell you a little story. Dave Bascom remixed the Traffic single for $3,000, and we turned it down because it was a pile of shit. And then they said, we'll give it back to him for Local Boy. I thought, $6,000, you just want to give him a little box like that with tenors in it. I actually think it's a good mix. And the people who produced it think it's a good mix.
And he says it's bizarre now hearing a song that was written quite some time ago.
There's a lot of descriptive stuff in it. I wrote the lyrics when I was 18 and never thought anybody would ever take any notice of them. And then people did. And then I had to explain myself. And it turned out to be a true story. The father of the boy that died approached me in a club, and I thought I was going to get a glass on my head, but he actually took it as a tribute, so that was good. It's one of those songs, you know what I mean? A lot of people like it, and it goes down well all the time. People who relate to it anyway, God knows why they relate to anything that we do, because you write it for yourself.
In the States, actor Robert Downey Junior has been beaten up in prison. The star, who's serving 6 months for parole violation, suffered a cut on the nose when he was slugged by a fellow inmate at the Los Angeles County Jail. Downey, who starred in Chaplin and One Night Stand, has been in prison since December the 8th after repeatedly falling foul of the law with drug problems. Officials say he may now be relocated for his own safety. Finally, a judge in California has thrown out a case brought by filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola against science fiction writer Carl Sagan. It related to the film Contact, which was released last year with Jodie Foster in the lead role. Coppola claims Sagan, who wrote the original book, had agreed to let him make it into a TV movie first. The LA Superior Court ruled there was no contract between the writer and director and dismissed the case. This is Danny O'Connor.
97 to 99, the net on Radio 1.